So Nuclear Blast, how did that all come about?
Well, after Summer Slaughter, which is our big American tour, we kind of played in front of a lot of labels that had had their eye on us. Like we, our manager is the CEO of Prosthetic, and so we'd kind of already like been in the circle of him, like talking to a few people, seeing where the interest was at. I think Summer Slaughter was really the beginning of basically labels that were waiting to see us. And at that point, pretty much every single label had made an offer after, towards the end. So, there was a few different options that we had, who we wanted to go with. But the thing is that we've sort of had our eye on Nuclear Blast for kind of since day one. When we first ever started talking about what labels we wanted to be on, when that, dialogue started coming about, we just always wanted to be on Nuclear Blast. So we're happy. We kind of showed the most enthusiasm about what they had to offer us, and luckily they offered us the best deal. So it came together rather naturally. Monty Connor, who is our A&R guy, what we're signing with is technically Nuclear Blast Entertainment, which is sort of Monty Connor's division of Nuclear Blast. And he just showed a lot of enthusiasm about the direction he wanted to take the band, and that we wanted to be with people who know that Fallujah tends to go a little bit weird sometimes. So we wanted to be with a label that was willing to put out an album that could be totally different from the last one. And they were all really enthusiastic about that. They actually, before we even mentioned anything, they were talking about how they liked a lot of the more melodic, less aggressive stuff on our album. So we're excited to see how things come together.
Yeah. So is it sort of not a development deal, but is it for any certain number of albums or
yeah, I think we're them for 3 albums.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I guess that sort of really, it's really good to sort of be somewhere that's willing to let you sort of experiment and be who you want to be, especially in sort of like, in recent things with, control over like, the direction that people are going and all the rest of it, just...
Yeah.
And a label that will let you, develop naturally, and not sort of railroad you down any particular line.
Exactly.
Yeah, so obviously a new label wants a new record. Are you starting writing anytime soon?
Yeah, we're actually already in the middle. Last night we were actually throwing riff ideas around and listening to some music, some stuff that we were kind of experimenting with. So yeah, we're already there. That was actually one of the I guess biggest apprehensions we had, because the Flesh Prevails in a lot of ways is still pretty fresh, but at the same time, of course, a new label wants a new album. But for us, it's almost feeling natural. Like, I think we're so stoked at like actually having a really solid label behind us that we're just we're already on board with wanting to write a new album and put things together, because we're almost still sort of on the buzz of the previous one, the whole writing process of that. So it's like we still have those creative juices flowing, and I think we're going to be able to crack out a new album pretty easily. I think every album we do seems to get a little bit easier to write for us, because we're butting heads less. The more and more as time goes on, our direction becomes more solidified and centralized. So everything just kind of gets easier for us. And so I think writing a new album, while it seems like, wow, it's only been like a year since we finished writing the last one, for us we're kind of just like, here we go again,
Well, it's almost like how it used to be, like that bands would write an album, release an album, then write the next album while they're touring, and then release it, like to like sort of make hay while the sun shines, and take advantage of like the creativity while it's while it's really fresh and pumping through you. So is that I don't want to get too much into it, but like you're saying about like going much more melodic, is that some things you're really sort of consciously thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we just get way more, I guess, enthusiastic about really emotional music, and I mean, it's hard to know how exactly we're going to take this next one exactly, because the Flesh Prevails really had this sort of sad aesthetic to it. I think it really kind of had this like over-ending, like kind of like lyrically and even sonically, the album was pretty melancholic. But I like that kind of subject matter, and I like the way it makes me feel. But who knows? Maybe on this next one we'll maybe do a little bit more major scale stuff. Maybe get a little bit more positive. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but it might. You know, we have to kind of wait and see. But I think the key here is that we're going to really try and stay melodic and still have groove and still have, you know, those exciting elements for live shows, but we just want to create, you know, really emotionally intense music. And I feel like we're ready to be in that writing mode again. we're not like kind of trembling at the thought of it.
Well, that so like Nuclear Blast. What, you know, I know like in terms of freedom and like stuff like that. But what was it that really attracted you to them over other people, over other labels?
I think a lot of it had to do with friends of ours who've been on the label, and you know, you can always judge a label by talking to bands who were on it. And you know, some bands can have terrible experiences with the label, and other bands can have a great experience with the label. And we just heard, you know, the least terrible things on Nuclear Blast, and they seem to, you know, have for us, their international presence is huge. And for us, as far as touring goes, we're not really trying to stay stateside. Like we really want to do a lot of traveling and do like a lot of really making Europe a priority, for example. And you know, Nuclear Blast is very much an international kind of company, and they have, I guess, the most opportunity and most presence in countries that we want to go to. So that was a huge aspect of it. You know, kind of what they saw and what they like wanted to do with us for touring and who they can pair us up with as far as booking agents and all that kind of stuff. So it just seemed natural that, you know, they also just seem to not be sinking. You know, the music industry is a very volatile place right now. You know, the offer that we're getting right now is like nothing compared to offers the bands were getting even 5-6 years ago. You know, so we're still at that pivotal edge of where the, you know, bands still need labels and they still need them to go really far. And so Nuclear Blast just seems to be the most stable, for one of the reasons being that their international office is so strong. And yeah, they just seem like the right choice, and they seem not to be a company that's going to be, you know, sinking anytime soon.
Yeah, because I mean, they're really sort of tied in with like Wacken Festival and, you know what I mean, the whole German like metal music scene, and like
right.
have a real sort of a lot of influence in that sort of area.
Yeah.
About sort of changing direction. Like, were they? Do you think Fallujah's always going to be like, well, for this record, like always going to be like a death metal focused album, or you think it's going to slide over into something new and different, and it's going to really surprise people?
Yeah, I really don't think Fallujah's always going to be a metal band. I mean, I think that we do still really enjoy the element of intensity. So I think, you know, we're still going to want to have, you know, like emotionally powerful music. But as far as like, I don't know, I think the one thing that has discouraged us most about always staying a death metal band is basically being a death metal band. You know, it's like when you go on tour with like tons of death metal bands and you kind of see what the scene is like and you see like kind of what you're getting yourself into. I think without any kind of shred of doubt in our minds, we just knew that this isn't where we wanted to see our careers go. You know, it just doesn't seem, for one, it doesn't seem sustainable, and two, there's a mentality that I don't think we have the same enthusiasm that we used to for. I mean, it's just we want music that has dynamics, and we want music that evolves, and we want music that, you know, I guess is just pleasing to the ear. Death metal doesn't really offer that to us anymore in a way it used to. So I think, you know, for us the natural choice is to move on, you know.
I had this thought the other day that bands had sort of forgotten that you can try and write a song that will get you into the charts in a completely different sense, you know what I mean? Almost be a little bit cynical with writing a song just to get you great exposure, to then draw a crowd, draw a different market of people to you. Have you ever thought about doing something like that?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's funny because, you know, that kind of has a connotation of selling out, which I don't think is
just getting people to hear you. You know?
Yeah, well, I know you can word it in two different ways. But for us, you know, I think I get the most amount of satisfaction because the fact of the matter is, no matter what it is, Fallujah is going to write an album it likes. Fallujah is never going to sacrifice, you know, whether a song is really different or whether a song's like, you know, really brutal or really melodic or like really radio friendly. it's going to be a song that Fallujah can get behind. So whatever choice we make, it's the choice that we want to make. And quite honestly, I think we all get the most satisfaction out of seeing your music go far. You know, I get the most satisfaction about. You know, for me, it's not satisfying. You know, writing this really brutal technical song, playing in front of 5 kids and their girlfriends. That's not cool to me. That's not. To me, that's a cop-out when people say that, you know, you're retaining your integrity by never selling out. It's like, it's not really about that. It's writing music you like. And for us, when I see tons of kids at the shows, if I can show a song to my mom even, and she's just like, oh, well, that one's not too bad. You know, like, I get satisfaction out of lots of people being able to like my music. And, you know, that's another bigger thing about the metal scene that becomes exhausting to us, is that it has this idea that it's very progressive, that it's very forward-thinking, and that it's very open-minded, when, like, honestly, metal's one of, like, some of the most closed-minded individuals ever on a music side of things, you know? People who are kind of afraid to really push the boundaries. And so for us, the next logical step is just to move forward from that. And there's so many great bands that are actually, like, really taking risks now, you know? Bands like, you know, that, you know, for example, like, we're about to go on tour with the Contortionists. They're one of those bands. Bands like, you know, Black Crown Initiate, Nail Blastaris is a fucking violin player. Like, I mean, just all kinds of other bands that are really kind of sick and tired of the classical molds and are really ready to, like, create this new scene of progressive music, whether you're more on the hardcore side, whether you're more on the metal side, but just music that actually makes you feel something. And a lot of music that's been around for a long time in the death metal realm kind of doesn't really make you feel anything. It's like, I don't know, it's like eating a giant bowl of, like, just, like, pasta with nothing in it. Like, just, that's your meal. It's just, like, starch. That, to me, is what, like, regular death metal is.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the Contortionists, actually, because obviously their last record, it still had elements of what they were before, but just a completely whole nother emotional level that they took it to, and just had a great success. I'm actually quite jealous of, well, both them and you, getting to watch each other every night, you know, because that language has, you know, just been a real figure in the last 6 months for me, you know.
Yeah, totally.
But like, sort of, you know, you sort of really sort of wearing your heart on your sleeve like they have with this record, and, you know, just like opening out and just trying something different. It's really refreshing to hear that someone being really honest about the limitations perhaps of a very narrow interpretation of, like, oh, you have to be brutal, you have to be this, you know, and just go, no, we're going to write music that satisfies us. And that,
right, exactly. And it's funny because, you know, we've actually had that conversation with a lot of bands before. You know, other bands that are kind of doing the same thing we're doing, or other bands that, you know, we like or are friends with. And, you know, honestly, it's not even just in metal, you know, that happens, you know. There's various other genres of friends we have. People are just like, dude, you get so over it after a while, and you get so over how people think that it just, some people view it, I guess, as discouraging, but for us, it's more inspiring, because it's like, wow, I want to make an album that really pushes some boundaries, you know? So that's kind of where we that's just how I like to think of it, is you're trying not to become discouraged by a scene that you've made a lot of, you know, commitments to. So you have to try and take it in a new direction and take those risks, or you can stay the same, which is equally a gamble, because kids are either going to say it's generic and repetitive, or they're gonna just eat it up totally, and you can be a totally generic band and blow up, and it still happens somehow. It still happens. No idea how. But
so now I've been, you know, talking to a lot of people about the Flesh Prevails that hadn't experienced you prior to that, and they were like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, you know, really love the more melodic elements and the more emotive moments of it, when you're really sort of sensitive and opened up to it. And but I was actually I did an interview with Robbie from the Contortionist, and he actually mentioned a band that you mentioned when we last spoke on Skype anyway, and that's the Submotion Orchestra, and how much that they'd influenced their language, and, you know, I mean, some, you know, the textures and tones and you know, taking elements from music like that, and not being afraid to have influences that are completely non-metallic, and, you know, it's really refreshing to see, and it's good. I hope it really works for you guys, because, like, you know, bravery should be rewarded.
Yeah, well, we try to think of it that way too, and yeah, it is funny how I feel like I've turned so many people onto Submotion Orchestra because they're such a good band. Like when other people listen to Submotion and they're like super stoked, like I get excited. I'm like, yes, thank you. This band is fucking awesome. So I think they're one of those bands where it's like, wow, you're taking two seemingly unsuspecting genres and putting them together, and yeah, they're another band that's taking risks, and they influence us huge, especially on a vocal level. Like when we were thinking up, a lot of our female vocal lines, they're one of the bands that comes into play a lot. Also, a lot of their uses of synths and like warp basses and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, any sort of plans in yourself getting involved on a live basis with playing keyboards and stuff like that? Is that
not really for me, because it's hard, because I like to try and have an energetic stage show, and a lot of those parts are going on like while I'm screaming. So I prefer, I produce like house and techno at home, and so I like the producing level of what we're doing, but there's so many different like synths going on and so many effects behind that there really would be no way for me to actually play it live, which I think is kind of cool, for right now what we're doing, we have everything running off of a backing track, so it works really well when we have, Andrew's click tracks, all of the patch changes, we have a relatively technical setup, and kind of like the way things are now, I think I prefer being up front and being commanding as far as a vocalist, and for us, we just don't want to pay a sixth person to play keyboards for us. That would suck. I think the only thing we might do one day is if we have enough vocal parts, we might have some girl join the band and actually sing live on the road with us. That we've talked about that, but that's definitely for later.
Yeah, because that's the logical conclusion of having a female vocal on the record and then just being able to have it live. Because obviously, a backing track is a backing track and is static and
exactly
fixed, isn't it? Yeah. But cheers, man. It's been fantastic.